Money laundering is a crime that involves the use of financial transactions to conceal the true source, location, or ownership of proceeds derived from other criminal activities. It is one of the most popular crimes that is ravaging the United States of America. Welcome to today's edition of Fraud Files, where we'll look at the case of a former Vice President, Joseph A. Cipolletti, who pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering. We will also talk about a California man, Sinval De Oliveira, who was sentenced to 5 years for prison for laundering $5.1 million. To avoid missing any of the details in this story, make sure to watch it all the way through. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon to be notified when new videos are posted. Without further ado, let's get started. In a case investigated by the FBI and is being prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorney Brian M. McDonough, the former Vice President of Discovery Tours Incorporated, an Ohio-based company that provided educational trips for grade school and high school students, pleaded guilty in federal court to devising a scheme to accept payments for trips and then use the funds for personal expenses. Joseph A. Cipolletti, 47, of Hudson, pleaded guilty to an 18-count indictment charging him with wire fraud, money laundering, bank fraud, and making a false statement under oath in a bankruptcy proceeding. According to court documents, Cipolletti worked as the Vice President of Discovery Tours Incorporated, a company that provided educational trips for students to places like Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois, New York City, Columbus, Ohio, and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Cipolletti managed the organization's finances, general ledger entries, and accounts payable and receivable as Vice President. Cipolletti could also sign on Discovery Tours' business bank accounts. Cipolletti, as Vice President, devised a scheme to defraud parents and other student trip purchasers by diverting funds intended for these trips to his own personal use on items such as home renovations and vehicles from June 2014 to May 2018. Discovery Tours abruptly ceased operations and filed for bankruptcy in May 2018 as a result of Cipolletti's actions and subsequent attempts to cover up the scheme. Hundreds of Ohio schools had their student trips to Washington, D.C. canceled, and more than 5,000 families had their trip fees refunded. Furthermore, on December 10, 2018, in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Northern District of Ohio, Cipolletti knowingly made statements under oath regarding the bankruptcy status of his organization. Cipolletti claimed that he owed his company no money when, in fact, he had embezzled more than $600,000 from the company and made false entries in the general ledger. At sentencing, the court will determine the total amount of loss. Cipolletti will be sentenced on November 29, 2022. In a similar case that was prosecuted by Assistant United States Attorney Meredith P. Dutcheman, a California man was sentenced to 5 years in prison for laundering $5.1 million. Sinval De Oliveira, 49, Torrance, California, was sentenced by U.S. District Judge William N. Conley to 5 years in federal prison for his role in a money laundering conspiracy. On March 4, 2022, De Oliveira pleaded guilty to the offense. In November and December 2020, the United States Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in collaboration with local law enforcement, investigated a series of thefts involving individuals who used false pretenses to convince business employees to collect and deliver cash on hand to individuals posing as legitimate money couriers. The scheme targeted both large and small businesses, and the total loss to date is estimated to be $300,000. De Oliveira flew to Milwaukee on December 2, 2020, to pick up $242,980 in fraud proceeds from co-defendants Moises Amezcua Cardenas and Mario Amezcua Cardenas. De Oliveira then used a series of smaller ATM transactions at various Milwaukee area banks to deposit the money into a funnel bank account. He avoided having to go into a bank and show identification by using ATM transactions. The money was deposited into a bank account in the name of De Oliveira. The bank account into which De Oliveira deposited the funds was in the name of a Florida corporation, but it served no legitimate business purpose other than to collect cash from illegal activities. Once deposited, the Wisconsin fraud proceeds were transferred to another funnel bank account and eventually sent overseas. De Oliveira was compensated for the money he laundered. Judge Conley determined that De Oliveira's Wisconsin financial transactions were part of a much larger pattern of nationwide money laundering activity concluding that the defendant laundered more than $5.1 million in illicit proceeds from various unlawful activities in just the 5 months preceding the Wisconsin transactions. De Oliveira was aware that he was conducting financial transactions with proceeds from criminal activities. Many factors were considered by Judge Connolly in determining an appropriate sentence, including the fact that De Oliveira was already on probation for another criminal offense in California at the time of this offense, and that his conduct was more serious than his co-defendants, and that he would most likely be deported back to Brazil following his imprisonment. On May 18, 2022, co-defendant Mario Amascua Cardenas was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison, and co-defendant Moises Amascua Cardenas was scheduled to be sentenced on June 17, 2022. Both Mario and Moises Amascua Cardenas are brothers. The defendants were charged as a result of investigations conducted by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Homeland Security Investigations, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Merrill Police Department, the Wasau Police Department, the Everest Police Department, the West Allis Police Department, the Stevens Point Police Department, and the Marathon County Sheriff's Department, with assistance from the Marathon County District Attorney's Office. And here we come to the end of today's Fraud File episode about a former vice president, Joseph A. Cipolletti, who pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering, and Sinval De Oliveira, who was sentenced to 5 years in prison for laundering $5.1 million. Remember, stick with cleaning laundry and not laundering money. We hope you enjoyed watching the video. If so, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. By clicking the bell icon, you can stay tuned to our channel for more amazing videos like this one. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this event in the comments section below. We'll see you in the next Fraud Files. Until then, continue to be a law-abiding citizen.